Hey everyone, and welcome to the July edition of 3030. My name is Pat Reinhardt of Conductor, and as always, thank you so much for spending 30 minutes of your valuable time with me. What are we going to cover today? There's been a lot going on. The big one is that there is a hell of a lot of volatility happening in Google's algorithm right now, and also it is hot as hell outside. Oh my God, it is so hot here in New York, and I'm sure there are folks in other areas of the country that are much hotter than this. But anyway, we're going to talk about the volatility and everything that's going on. We are also going to talk about INP, which is going to replace FID in Core Web Vitals. So we're going to play a little bit of the acronym game here today. Also, again, as everyone who has joined the program on a regular basis knows that I love to confirm SEO truths that have been true pretty much forever, but I love it when Google confirms them. So we have one of those as well. We're going to talk a little bit more about perspectives. I've actually covered this over the course of the last few months. Google, I believe, is betting bigger on perspectives, again, to kind of combat what's going on or their nervousness around TikTok and Instagram. We're going to talk about the Google News indexing bug that's been going on over the last few weeks, which is finally fixed. We are also going to say goodbye to Buy on Google, which is a feature that launched in 2015. But hey, let's get into it now because we only have 30 minutes. Number one, there is volatility out there, y'all, and it is crazy high. Pretty much. This is the highest that I have ever seen any of these charts. When you look at this, you can see across, and typically I only show SEMrush's sensor, which is this one up here, because it's the one I trust the most. But at the end of the day, you can see across the board that we have reached historic highs from a volatility standpoint, right? And from that perspective, you would expect that you would hear, stories of woe, and the doomsday commenters would come out and they'd be like, "Oh, Google screwed my site and XYZ." But the interesting part about this is that while there is so much volatility out there, again, appears to be the highest in recorded history, there really wasn't a lot of chatter, and there really wasn't a lot of major fluctuations for sites, right? And when I say chatter, for anyone new joining, I mean going across, there are different forums out there, different groups that I am part of. Not a lot of people are hearing, major stories of anything cataclysmic, which you would expect this to cause, right? And then from that perspective, there really wasn't anything. I went through hundreds of accounts. I went into our database and looked across swaths of keywords, and I just didn't see any sites really moving that much, which was crazy to me, because when you look at these charts, I mean, look at SEMrush, for example. So just to put this into context, so SEMrush earlier this year redid the way that they calculate volatility because Google was so volatile the prior 18 months. So what you're looking at here, we're in blood red territory. This would be in nuclear territory if we had been using the same system last year. So this is extremely high movement, extremely high movement. But at the end of the day, it's just interesting that there really wasn't anything, happening. And also Google didn't announce anything. A lot of people were expecting it. They were like, "Oh, it's a core algorithm update," or it's something, we haven't had an algorithm update or a core algorithm update in a while. But for the most part, Google hasn't announced anything. It hasn't announced anything. And from that perspective, I got a lot of questions about this over the last, week as people started to see this. And for the most part, a lot of people were asking "Hey, is there anything I should do here? What is this all about?" I mean, the simple answer is keep an eye on, if keep an eye on your rankings and your traffic to see if anything goes up or down. But, and then a lot of folks, there's a theory that this have to do with the Google News, indexing issue. And that might be, it might have been a lot of sites moving in and out. But the interesting part is when you looked across all of the, when you look across all of the, the landscape, a lot of the volatility happened I don't know how to say, was it further down in the in the rankings, right? So it wasn't like page 1, 2, or 3, or 4. It was really the later pages, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like that's really where you saw a lot of the volatility. And actually, just looking at a comment here, someone also said that not a lot of volatility on pages 4 through 10. Not much on page 1. So again, yeah, it was more in the later pages. So it was more like kind of the bottom, of the visibility chart, I would say. So very, very interesting, right? That, the volatility wasn't really happening on page 1, but it was happening in those later pages. And, when you look at it, like I just went through and I picked, a couple of, accounts, just from, my normal, kind of the accounts that I look at across different verticals. And, just this is what I was seeing for the most part across finance. Again, this is just one site, but again, like you can see, this was kind of the normal. It looks exactly the same. Little volatility in the later, colors down here, around here, but for the most part, pretty stable. Retail, same thing, very, very stable. Didn't really see anything move. And again, looking across 100 sites, in the retail vertical, pretty much seeing the same thing across the board. We're seeing a lot of things kind of moving around and churning in those later pages. But not necessarily like the overall numbers, moving up and down, but like it was interesting because didn't really see anything moving. Healthcare, same thing. Looked across a bunch of sites here and didn't really see anything at all. And then pharma, same thing. Like this again, and that's just these 4 verticals, but. You could have really gone into any category, in my opinion, and you probably would have seen the same thing. But for the most part, again, the volatility that is going on right now. Nothing announced from Google. Not seeing a lot of volatility on the upper pages. Really, it's more kind of churning in the bottom of the barrel. Again, pages 5 through 10 is mainly what I was seeing. Again, there's someone here who's said they've been seeing it on pages 4 through 10. So I don't think there's anything necessarily to do, but it's just interesting that the volatility is so high. And I'm sure the Google News indexing issue played some part in this as they were fixing it and things started to flood back, maybe, sites started to flood back in, and maybe that impacted something besides Google News, you know what I mean? So maybe, maybe that had something to do with it. But at the end of the day, the volatility that you're most likely hearing about here right now, there's nothing really pressing about it. No sites have collapsed. No sites have mooned. There really hasn't, nothing really has happened. So from that perspective, just keep an eye on your sites. Again, I don't think you're going to see anything on the upper pages, but for the most part, it's pretty, it's pretty calm on the surface, I guess is the best way to put it. So just keep that in mind as you're, kind of looking across the next, the next few days, next few weeks. But it's already started to kind of mellow out, but the volatility is still very high even today. So just keep that in mind that there's definitely something going on, but it doesn't seem to be impacting like the service level pages or results. It's really kind of the bottom pages that are seeing the most volatility, which is interesting. So moving on from there. So NIP, right? What the hell is that, and why is it replacing FID in Core Web Vitals, right? So if you remember, back in May, Google announced, and again, when we send this presentation out, implore you to go and read these articles. So from that perspective, when the Google announced that they had come up with a better responsive metric, right? So FID, or first input delay, which we have all, kind of been looking and and also seeing, kind of like gauging how we're doing from a Core Web Vitals perspective, is now going to be replaced by something called Interaction to Next Paint, or INP for short. So in March of 2024, this new metric will replace FID, or first input delay. So first input delay will no longer be part of Core Web Vitals. It will be replaced by the Interaction to Next Paint. So another thing, like, will FID continue to be tracked in Google Search Console after this date? No, it's gone. So after March of 2024, INP, which is already being reported in Google Search Console, by the way. So if you go into Search Console today, you will see that, that you'll start to receive alerts about it and things of that nature. And for the most part, what Google has explained, or basically, pinned, like you said about it, is that it is a more accurate responsive metric, right? This is something that they've actually been testing for a very long time, and and again, they announced this a while ago that they were working on this and piloting it. But from that perspective, you will start to see, they started to experiment this back in May 2022. So when you think about it, them doing this, they have a lot of data behind this. So it must be, they must have gotten something, everything back that they wanted to see. So that's why they're doing this. But for anyone that reports on Core Web Vitals metrics or has projects going on around Core Web Vitals, just be aware of this, that the FID, metric will be going away in March of 2024. And, the big question here is like, do I need to do anything? My opinion is no. There really isn't anything that you need to do, because if you've been paying attention to your Core Web Vitals, hopefully not too much, because I think a lot of people, dump a lot of time and energy and money into Core Web Vitals, and their sites probably operate just fine. But besides that, outside of my grumpy opinion on it, there's nothing you really should do. If you've been paying attention and taking care of your site, and your first input delay is in a good position, then your INP will have a good foundation, is basically what Google has said, and something I agree with, that if you've been doing it right, or been taking care of it all this time, that will carry over into the new world, right? This new world, it will carry over, and you will be building off of an already strong foundation that you've created, paying attention to first input delay. So from that perspective, again, if you're reporting on Core Web Vitals, or you're paying, or you have projects around, you pay close attention to them, that's your prerogative. Just be aware that this is going to change. And honestly, I would change over to INP now, because you have the data that is starting to populate, and I would start to cut out the first input delay metric from any reporting or any sort of benchmarking for your progress, because INP is going to be, or interaction to next paint is going to be, the responsiveness metric moving forward. So just be aware of that, and make sure that that you update your reporting, you update your sites, and make sure that if your leadership is aware of this, make sure they understand that something is changing, and that reporting or anything that you report on will be changing as of March 2024. But you should not wait that long. You should just start doing this now, because INP is already being reported on in Google Search Console. So that is what's happening there. So from that perspective, let's go to the next one. So anyone who's been joining the program for quite some time knows that one of my favorite things is that I love to kind of call out when Google confirms an SEO truth. I've covered over, I think we've done about 20 or 25 of them over the last couple of years. And basically it's like basic SEO truths, right? That people argue a lot about, like keyword density or page rank or things of that nature, like all these things that have been kind of swirling around in SEO forever. But I think it's good. I think it's good hygiene to call these things out when the company that is responsible for it all actually comes out and says something, right? So again, what came out is that on the Google Search Liaison, Twitter account, which is run pretty much by Danny Sullivan, is saying that word count is not a thing, right? And I can't tell you how many conversations I have around word count every single week, right? Like, well, my competitor has more words than me, and like, what's the right length of this article? Like, what is my goal for word count and things of that nature? And even though this has been true for a very long time, and I'll tell you that many years ago, word count was a thing. It was very much a thing, and again, even if Google denies it was never a thing, it was totally a thing. We ran a analysis once on a piece of content that had 500 words, and then 800 words, and then 1,200 words. We found out that on average, pieces that had 800 words, did better at that time. Again, we're talking 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So, but since then, obviously things have changed, right? Google has gotten more specific, as everyone knows. I think what I've taken away with my experience with Google SGE, the search generative experience, which will more than likely become the new way of searching sometime early next year, is that specificity is going to win the day, in the future. But from that perspective, I was happy to read this, to say that they came out and said that there's no preferred word count. You do not need to worry about how long or short a piece of content is, as long as what it is gives the user what they want, which I know is like the answer that answers everything. But for the most part, it's so true here. And I think that a lot of people worry about this. And actually, I take that back. I know a lot of people worry about this because I talk about it at least 3 or 4 times a week with customers, prospects, people that just reach out to me randomly. And a lot of people ask, like, well, how long? It's like, hey, what do you think about this page? It's like, hey, this is this is an idea for it. Okay, cool. How long should it be? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like if it's an article, like a blog article or something you're trying to write a lot of information about, like as much as you need to say where you're not repeating yourself, right? And if it's a product description, just say what the product is and move on. Like there's no reason to sit there and write the same thing over and over again, like we all probably did in college to just reach a certain page, a certain page length so that our professors would accept the paper. Maybe just me. But from that perspective, just want to confirm again, another SEO truth confirmed, that word count does not matter. So when you're writing content, don't worry about it. It's all good, right? Whatever you wrote, it's probably fine. Just make sure that it is valuable. It is optimized well, and it's made, and it answers the question that the user has, or it answers the need that the user had, and you'll be fine. But again, a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around word count. You no longer need to. So keep that in mind as you're writing your content, everybody. So let's move on. How are we doing on time? You're doing okay, Pat. All right, next one. Let's see. All right, perspectives. So over the last couple of months, I've been talking about Google Perspectives, and what that is a new filter that exists on mobile. And what it gives you is, it gives you, like when you ask a question, or when you ask a question, something, or asking advice on something, it gives you a way to filter down to either brands or influencers or experts with firsthand experience, content just from them, so that you can get your answer quicker. Now, why did they create this? My opinion is that, which I've been saying, is that Google is very nervous that 40% of Gen Zers start their searches on TikTok and Instagram, right? Because who are those people? They're future, Google users, right? And not that they don't use Google now, but those platforms and closed environments have become so popular that people actually search for things like pizza places and, clothes and things of that nature on those platforms. And the search functionality, works pretty well. I don't have an Instagram account or TikTok account myself, but my wife has an Instagram account. And so I was messing with it, and the search functionality works pretty well. And that makes them nervous because that's the future of their business, right? So when you think about that, I believe that Google releasing this, which what you're looking at is kind of a step up from that, which is now there is a carousel. And Glenn Gabe, who, again, everyone who joins the program regularly knows that I follow Glenn Gabe. He is a really smart SEO strategist. And if you are on Twitter and are interested in following someone who does some really good wrap-ups, you should definitely follow Glenn. But what he caught was this carousel that is now appearing when you're asking. I was able to duplicate it, but I was not able to replicate it consistently. So they're definitely testing this out. But as you can see, and like I said last time, a lot of stuff from brands, but a lot of stuff from Reddit and Quora, right? So they are definitely they're going to be the early benefactors, to this, is because Google is showing a lot of Reddit, a lot of Quora. And again, when I first talk about perspectives, it was actually in conjunction with an announcement that they were going to roll out an update to the helpful content update. I believe this is all part of that, because they did say that there is going to be a lot more content, what they called hidden gems, from like comments in forums and things of that nature, that they were going to start to bring to the surface. And I think you're witnessing that. And the filters carousel and filter, might be the first wave of that update. So why does all this matter? Like, Pat, why does this matter? Who cares? Like, I think it's a few different reasons. And this pertains to everybody. This is for everybody here, right? This is Google strengthening its stance on EEAT, right? Like that, the expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, right? And this is all about authorship, firsthand experience, expertise, And it's all about getting that content, bubbling that content up to the top, right? So everyone on here that is creating content, which again of all a couple hundred of you right now, that is pretty much everyone on this call. This is imperative to take note of, right? Is that if you are in a particular area, medical, finance, your DIY stuff like that, is imperative to have doctors, financial advisors, experts in the space, experts on the subject, no matter what the subject is, be associated, or you yourself and your site and your company being experts and authorities in your space is going to become more important. We've already seen this with authorship and the what I've called like the re-rise of authorship, and how important that's becoming. That someone that piece of content was written by someone that has expertise in this field or in this space. Again, you don't have to assign an author to every single thing on your site, but really to articles, and which is what this is going to pull from. This is Google leaning heavy into this, and they're going to continue to do this, in my opinion. And again, this is another step towards Google answering their TikTok and Instagram problem, right? This is a problem for them that they are nervous about. They have spoken about this publicly, that they are nervous about this. Their CEO has spoken about this publicly. This is something that everyone needs to take note of, that Google is changing the way that they are going to have search look and feel, because and you can see it already. SGE has what's everywhere. It's all imagery, right? There's a lot of imagery. It's a lot more inviting. It's not just a bunch of text. And that's because future generations, and I would even say even current generations, are getting more used to a visual world and the way that and like a more visual search experience, which I've been talking about for over a year. So this is, again, in my opinion, just another step in that direction. And again, what you see here is this is specificity, right? They are pulling from very specific areas, and the answers are very specific. This is a comment in a Reddit thread. Like, that is what this answer is, or perspective, whatever you want to call it. So take that into account as well. When you're writing content, there's going to continue to be a place for broad, like subject matter content. But the specific answers, like the specificity of those answers, is what you really should be focusing on. And the authority and the who is writing your stuff, and why are they writing it, right? Are you an expert in the space? Are you an authority? Have you thought about that? Have you built your knowledge graph up, enough where Google would believe that? And there's a lot of steps and ways that you can do that. But I think for everyone on here, like, this should be part of your thinking and your strategy moving forward. How can you be more specific? And how can you make yourself a bigger authority, or connect your brand or your site with an authority in the space for mutual benefit, right? Keep that in mind, because that is where search is going. You see signs of it everywhere. And this is again, perspectives, I think, is a big part of that, or it's at least a big barometer of that, or a huge sign that this is the way that Google is going to start going. You're going to start seeing these very specific answers and results popping up. And if you're just answering things broadly and you're not associating them with anyone that's an expert, or your brand, by the way, can be an expert, then you're probably missing something, right? You're probably missing the mark on something. So something to keep that in mind. A couple of questions. What about content that already exists? Would it be beneficial to add an author byline to an article that's already been on the site? Absolutely. There is nothing wrong with going back and associating an author with a piece of content that already exists. A lot of sites do it. It's not a big deal. I know a lot of people that do it. So if it's something that you have the ability to do, you absolutely should. One other question before we move on: does audience type schema have any influence on perspectives? I can't answer that question because I don't know yet, because it's too new. Perspectives only rolled out on June 12th, but I would imagine that it might, right? That if people start marking up, I think schema is a big part of this. So I think like the FAQ schema, the question and answer schema are probably things that are going to kind of trip this. And I would be interested to see what Reddit and Quora do with that. But again, I don't know if that it has any influence, because there hasn't been any studies and I haven't done any tests myself. But I would not be surprised if schema plays a big part in this, especially with the way that kind of SGE is looking. Looks like it's going to be coming out. So, all right, next one. How are we doing? 5 minutes. You can do this, Pat. All right, Google News indexing bug. So anyone who didn't notice, on July 10th, Google confirmed that there was an indexing issue in Google News, and this was impacting all sites globally, apparently. But it was actually began on June 21st, right? So the exact post read, there's an ongoing issue with indexing in Google News that's affecting all sites. Sites may be experiencing a decrease in traffic from Google News. We're working on identifying the root cause. Next update will be in 24 hours. And if I can point your attention to the right, you can see that they gave the updates on everything. So the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and by the 14th, it was fully resolved. So once they discovered the issue, they had it resolved within a few days. But it's interesting because this actually lingered for 3 weeks. Once they really got on it, they were able to fix it. But this issue started on June 21st and wasn't fixed until July 14th. That's a really long time for publishers that were impacted. And not all publishers were impacted, by the way. Only some publishers were impacted. But from that perspective, this is just something to be aware of that happened. A lot of people didn't know about this. I got a lot of questions about it. As it started coming up, we did start to see some stuff in our data, for some publishers we work with that were losing some visibility. But at the end of the day, right now, everything's fixed. So if you're a news publisher on here, I'm sure you're already aware of this, but there's nothing to be done at the moment. At this point, all the issues have been resolved and it's been confirmed. John Mueller confirmed it down here. That they had discovered it, and then they updated this on July 14th, said there will be no more updates because it's done. But at the end of the day, this was a pretty big deal and a pretty big shift for a lot of publishers that happened over the last 3 weeks, because a lot of publishers lost a lot of visibility during those times. But pretty much across the industry and across the world, if you follow the threads and a lot of the conversations around it, pretty much everyone said that everything was back to normal levels on the 14th or 15th. So that's good that everyone's back to where they need to be. But again, if you are a news publisher and maybe you didn't know about this or you didn't know about the issue, but you did see the declines, here's the answer you can go to your boss with of what happened. So from that perspective, that's what's going on there. But all good now. Everything's fixed. So one last thing. So buy on Google. So in 2015, although there were shades of this going back to like 2010, I think, Google is doing away with buy on Google in September. So as you can see here, as of September 26, 2023, everything, all merchants got notified today that the buy on Google, service will no longer be available in Google search. It will, however, still be available in Google. You can read the message that they posted in their support forums. Again, if you are a merchant or user, you already got an email about this, most likely. And the big question is, are they replacing it with anything? So at the moment, there is not an immediate something that is immediately replacing it, but they have mentioned a program that they are piloting that they announced in 2022 that allows folks to skip directly to the checkout page, which is pretty cool. If you watch the demo of it, it's pretty cool. If you're interested and you use Merchant Center, you should go sign up for the pilot and see if it works for you. They're looking for people to sign up for it. They want more companies, to sign up for it. But at the end of the day, just so you're aware, and again, if you are a merchant, you probably already got an email about this. But as of September 26, 2023, buy on Google for search, not YouTube, will be discontinued in the United States. So that's just something, because I know a lot of people use this. So if you're unaware of this, just be prepared that this service is going away for search, but not for YouTube. You can still use buy on Google and YouTube. And if you're interested in the pseudo replacement for it, go sign up for the pilot. Again, when we send the deck out, all the links are here. Go sign up for the pilot and get in on it. So with that, and here's what the field looks like. So only one more thing to cover is that someone asked John Mueller, if you guys are going to run any updates this summer, because I really need one. But what John wrote back was, I'm sure we'll have some. Cue the countdown music. So everyone hold on to your butts. There's going to be an update. Sounds like there's going to be an update at some point. But from that perspective, isn't there always an update coming, right? I feel like there's always an update coming. And even with that, we talked a lot about algorithms today, but the only algorithm that matters is the heart, mind, and soul of your customer. If you create great content that they want to read and do, then you'll be a customer for life. So thank you everyone for joining. And with that, I will see everybody I will see everyone the next time around. Sorry, my computer just had a weird glitch. But with that, we do have office hours on Tuesday, July 25th at 11 a.m. If you are interested in joining and lobbing questions at me live, please join us. It's a lot of fun. We do it every the following Tuesday after the live 30:30. But with that, everybody, because I know we're just at time. Thank you so much for joining me. As I say every time, this is my favorite part of my job, and I would not be able to do it without you. Thank you so much for spending 30 minutes of your very valuable time with me. I am always humbled by how many people show up. And with that, thank you again, and we will see you next month.